Hi everyone, my name is Chris Boyke. I'm VP of Client Success with New Elevation, and I'm going to, hopefully I can talk as fast as Missy did. That was really impressive. Talk a little bit about infinite scroll. In this case, I'm going to be talking about AngularJS, but I know this is a Lightning talk, so we'll also talk a little bit about Lightning as well. So the application, so my company, New Elevation, we focus on consulting. We do a lot of, we've started doing a lot of Salesforce work recently. We're kind of in a unique vertical because we mainly focus on retailers. So the application that I'm going to be talking about today was a clienteling app for a retailer here in the Bay Area. So store associates are armed with iPods and other fairly small, slow devices. You walk into the store and they'll sign you up as a client to sort of help form that relationship between the store associate and the client. So this is a specialty retailer, so the customers that go to this particular retailer are fitness enthusiasts, yoga enthusiasts, things like that. Probably good activities for folks with hand pain. They'll sign them up for special events, sales, and et cetera. It's a very successful app, so you'll have some store associates who have several hundred clients. So with success comes a challenge. There's a Salesforce backend serving this application. So all of the data being sent back and forth over these slow in-store networks was starting to lead to delays, timeouts. Again, you've got a slow store network, you've got slow devices. So things started to become very problematic. The solution, for example, in scrolling through a large client list is something that a lot of people see on the web, infinite scroll. As you scroll down, either on a mobile device or on a web browser on a desktop, you just start to automatically see more and more results. So if you have a client list of 500 clients and Zeke Zizix walks into your store, you can sort of scroll until you get to them. On a small device like that, the user interface works much better, certainly, than having next and previous buttons and whatnot. So as I mentioned, we inherited this application. So it was written in AngularJS on the front end, version 1.4 to be specific. So when we wanted to add the infinite scroll capabilities, fortunately, there was already an open source Angular directive out there called ng infinite scroll. Got a little bit of code samples here. There's a paging function that you register essentially by specifying a div in your HTML. And then the JavaScript function that was calling the Apex code. So we're using an Apex custom controller on the back end. So we just added essentially an offset parameter there. And then in the Apex code itself, modify that to pass in an offset into the SOQL query. And that's essentially it. So very simple change, essentially, to add a pretty powerful feature into the application. But wait a minute, this is a Lightning talk. So what about Lightning? So in full disclosure, this was my first Lightning component, so I may have done a few things wrong. But I thought, well, yeah, how difficult would it be to do the same type of thing? And what can we learn comparing one framework to another? So with Lightning, as all good programmers do, I started out by doing some Google searches and quickly found this code sample. So a big shout out to people who post code samples online. These are the unsung heroes of the development world. So he posted a pretty nice sample. If you've written a Lightning component, and I'm sure a good number of you have, there are a few key parts, right? There's the renderer, there's the helper. In the renderer, I've sort of simplified out his code sample. He does some really nice things with timeouts and other things, but the key piece is right there. When a window on scroll event happens, you call the helper function to get the next page. In your helper, a little bit of fetching of a state variable there, updating it, and then calling the get contacts function. The component itself maintains state, which I must say, as a first-time Lightning developer, I thought it's kind of interesting that you're storing your state variables in HTML. I'm sure there's another way to do it, but that was the recommended approach in the tutorials and whatnot. And then an Apex code, and I don't know if this is a good style or not here for me doing my first Lightning talk, but I did find kind of an egregious bug. At first, I was really shocked I come from a Java programming world, so you would expect that if you have a function that has an integer parameter, that the thing you're getting is an integer. It turns out not to be the case, and there's this pretty long, detailed explanation as to why that is. And someone has filed a bug report on that. So it was certainly surprising to me to encounter this in my first foray into this. The workaround is pretty straightforward. You cast your integer to an integer, and then on you go. But interesting nonetheless.
5 minutes.
Is it? Oh, I'm sorry. All right. So points of comparison, Angular, proved mature framework, widely used in a lot of different situations. Can be used with Salesforce or any backend, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of the pros. Lightning, the developer console is huge, right? I think when you're developing something like Angular with Salesforce, it can be kind of cumbersome. Lightning made it a lot easier. I really like what they've done there with the developer console. I really like the modular approach and everything. So, I think Salesforce is certainly investing a lot here. I think this is, going to be a fantastic framework. Still a few kinks to be worked out and whatnot. Last point, we're hiring. We're looking for developers. So that's it. Thank you. Sorry for running over.